So we got
Okay.
it. Alrighty, so. Alrighty, do we have, call the meeting to order at 4:39 PM? Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from November 10th?
Motion
Oh,
to
no,
approve,
excuse me, approve the agenda for November 10th.
motion to approve the agenda for today.
All right. I'll move it. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, we're going with this agenda. Approval of the October 13th meeting minutes.
Motion to approve the meetings from, minutes from October.
I'll second. Chrissy, you good?
All good.
All righty. All righty, so we'll just go down to the chair's report. The Long Island Railroad has announced improved increased service for events at UBS Arena, both before and after the event. This was effective just the other day. Number of leases have been signed for the new Penn Station, such as Rose's Pizza, et cetera, and stores hope to start opening early next year. The Long Island Railroad is investigating my suggestion to look at various options to provide non-diesel service for the Oyster Bay branch, but there's nothing to announce this time. It's just in research at the moment. Work continues on the Long Island Railroad mega projects with third track station improvements, renovation progress in Penn Station, and final testing of signals and training of crews for Penn side, for East Side access. As you know, the Long Island Railroad Commuter Council was invited to participate in an emergency training set for this coming weekend at Grand Central. Hector Garcia will provide further details later during the meeting. MTAIT is working on the website issue that I called to their attention regarding access to schedules and should have this resolved within the month. Randy, Andrew, Lisa, and I met with Pat Warren and his team about their working draft for e-bike scooter regulations. The draft has not been finalized, but two key elements that are charging on board is not and will not be permitted, and neither is riding in stations or on trains. More to come on this important issue. And PCAC has made a decision on a new associate director, and we hope to have him on board shortly. Lisa will provide more details later in the meeting. Anybody have any questions? All righty, then we'll move down to the executive director staff update. Lisa?
We so our choice of candidate for the associate director position did receive an offer yesterday. 2 days ago, and did here's Larry, and is going to and responded with a counter, and they're in conversation and is in conversation with the MTA, and hopefully there will be a resolution to that very soon. I'd love to get him or her or him on board by the end of the month, although given the way this process has been working, middle of next month is probably more likely. But our PCAC meeting is December 8th, and so I would be more than happy to settle for December 8th. That would be terrific. We have
Great to introduce him there.
Yeah, absolutely. We are much closer also to finalizing the job description for our planning and advocacy manager vacancy. And we will have, I should have that finalized. I think hopefully had my last conversation with HR yesterday, and hope to have that posted or assigned a HR specialist next week so that it can get posted the following week. And then hopefully, and I'm very hopeful, we'll have something by the end of someone, we'll have that out posted and filled by the end of the year. But what I'm not really hopeful about is the amount of work that HR has to do with the very few number of HR people they have on staff. So if things don't start really moving the way we need them to move, then we will really pursue things in a much
More aggressive fashion.
more aggressive fashion. Absolutely.
Putting it politely.
Yeah, absolutely. Kara, I know that Brian has to jump off, so I wanted to go a little quickly on this. Kara has done a lot of research, and we've done a lot of sort of trying to put together the pieces of the Google group so that we can reconstitute the group that as it existed. But it turned out that Bill Henderson is the one that created that, and he did that from his NTA account, and therefore it's done. It's over. It is what it is. It was what it was. It
Okay.
cannot be what it cannot be.
Can
So
that be
the-
canceled or wiped out or?
we don't know, but what it can be is reborn as something new.
Okay,
And so Kara is gonna give us a minute about that.
Yeah, so because Bill Henderson is the owner of the old one, we cannot touch it essentially. So the current members can all unsubscribe from that group, and we created a brand new one called the LIRRCC Google group that we will send you all invitations to after this meeting, so that you can all post any updates that you have there. If there's any issues with that, you can reach out to us and let us know if you have trouble finding it, but it should function the exact same as the old one, just with the updated current members instead.
Right. So Christy, if it doesn't sound familiar to you, it's because you had never been added to the old Google group, because we never had the ability to do that. And on the old Google group are people who are in a wide variety of ways no longer with us. And we did not have the ability to take their names from the list. So this will, keep it as a group that is not owned by a person, but with a PCAC email. So we have one of the things that we've done with our updated website is create PCAC emails. So that makes it less individual ownership and more, modern technology, so that it's usable against across more than individuals.
Well, I have a question. Will you send out instructions on how to leave the other group?
We'll try. I mean, I haven't tried to unsubscribe yet. It should be as simple as hitting an unsubscribe, but it may not be. I didn't want to do that until we have everybody on the other one yet.
Yeah, you should be able to go to any recent notification that you've gotten from the old Google group, and there should be a link at the bottom to click unsubscribe. If that does not work for you, then we will send out more detailed instructions on how to leave that other group.
And I'm assuming because we don't have Bill's login, we can't remove former members. So if somebody does email that Google group, essentially old members are still getting an
Right.
email.
And not only don't we have Bill's old login information, his email no longer exists because it's an MTA email. So when he left here 4 years ago, his email was wiped out.
Right.
So they can't access. I mean, I'm sure that somebody could access it, but that's not. I would imagine that somebody could, but that is not their priority.
Seeing how the IT department's been doing with that other issue we brought up, I wouldn't count on them for any real quick action, unfortunately.
Right.
So I think
Speaking
we're
of IT
proceeding the right way.
Speaking of IT and issues, Jerry, you had and I had also reached out to Suffolk County about members and about pursuing additional membership. They continue to have they continue to deal with the backlash of their cybersecurity break, and so I still don't even have the ability to, or when we saw them last, didn't have access to their emails. So the business of government has not fully resumed in Suffolk.
Oh, it's brutal. It's brutal in Suffolk County. It's you wouldn't believe it that it could happen in this day and age, but it did. It's concerning,
Don't click on things except the unsubscribe link that we send you.
No, I agree with that 100%. Did you have anything else, Lisa, you wanted to?
Kara had a couple of observations on social media, but I know that we've got 10 minutes of Brian. And do we want to take a vote on and a conversation on the open meetings law?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
Okay, so we're just gonna jump down to the new business, you just want to give us a quick overview of what we're doing,
Sure.
just so it's on the record for everybody?
So when the emergency order expired at the end of COVID, those are air quotes for people who don't have a camera on or are unable to see. The COVID emergency order 11 expired. It took with it provisions to allow for fully remote public meetings. And the open meeting law requirement that was passed with the budget of last year required that there be an in-person quorum component, which can allow for more than one location, as long as there are public, the public can
Has
access
access.
those locations. So we, as each of the 3 councils and PCAC as a whole, have to develop a resolution and regulations about how we're going to handle that. How we're going to handle our meetings. So drafted and sent to members. Basically, it looks really official because I essentially plugged and played from the open meetings law context, and a lot of their wording from their website.
Okay, I was good with it personally, but I know Brian had the concern that he raised and makes sense. Do you want to address Brian's concern?
So I know that there have been concerns that have been raised in many of the forums I go to, requesting or asking to require that people fully identify themselves on screen in a room before they speak. And in doing research, there was a finding that said that in a building where you have to show identification to get into the building for security, yes, that can be mandated, but that in other locations, and that would extend, although it hasn't been tested, but it would be a natural extension since it occurred in in-person meetings, that you don't have to identify yourself if you're, say, speaking at a school board meeting and you don't want to identify yourself as somebody's parent, or you're speaking in another setting and you don't want to, say your full name, that you're not required to do that. So we can request, but not require, that people put their full name up on the screen.
Right. Although, like I said, we'll make it a firm request, so to speak. If someone knows the law and they want to say, I don't have to do it because of the boom, and they quote the law to us, well, then we got to let it slide. But for the most part, I would just proceed with, that's what we want, that's what we expect. And again, like I said, if someone knows the quick minutiae of the law and wants to make a deal out of it, then they can just be anonymous. Is that all right with you, Brian, or?
Yeah, the other thing was, I don't have the wording in front of me, but they had to, we are required, if we're on video, to be seen and heard. Can we apply that same requirement to non-members?
No, the public is not held to the same standard as members of a board or of a public body.
I think also the problem is that some people are calling in on their phones and they don't have video available to them or something of that nature that you have to. We are giving people a phone link. And usually the reason for the phone link is because they don't have video.
Yeah, I mean, I'm asking, we're given the phone link too, but we are required to show ourselves.
Are we?
That's how it's drafted.
So to be clear, this is strictly for members, this requirement, and going forward, if we're not on video, we're required to announce ourselves.
Yes, and when you are speaking, I can put this up if you'd like me to share.
Sure.
Please. Yeah.
I read it as members, you need to be seen and heard. Yes, it says here, shall ensure that its members can be heard, seen, and identified while the meeting is being conducted. So if I was to dial in and not zoom in, I cannot,
No, you're saying you can't be seen.
right, if I go like this, I'm not seen, so
Right.
I'm not compliant.
Right,
However, non-members could do that.
correct.
If we're not allowed to ask it, enforce it, then, I mean, it's a mute situation then, but it was my recommendation.
No, and I thought it was a good one until Lisa did the research.
Again, we can request,
Yes.
we can absolutely request.
And I don't think it's gonna be too much of a problem considering the amount of people that we do have that call in. It's relatively negligible. And the people who do take the time to attend our meetings or call into our meetings, they pretty much want us to know who they are.
Yeah.
I don't recall anybody wanting to really be anonymous.
My other question, Lisa, if you could clarify. So I know I asked the last time if some of us are physically in Mineola and some of us are physically in Broadway or at Penn Plaza, whatever. Those two physical locations can Zoom to connect to one another and meet the quorum guidelines if two are in one location physically and two are in the other location physically, or one to meet the quorum.
Yes, as long as they're both publicly accessible.
If we are all in person, do we need to provide a phone or Zoom link, or are then non-members required to be in person because we are all in person? Because the way I read it was, if we go Zoom, if one of us can't be in person and dial in or Zoom in, then we have to open up that dial or Zoom to non-members. But if we're all in person, then non-members need to be in person to join. They can't Zoom in. Or video conference, I guess is the proper
So
way to say it.
this says, the highlighted part, that members of the public be permitted to attend and participate in any meeting by video conference when a member attends by video conference.
Right. So how I explained it, is that correct? If we're all in person, the LIRRCC members are in person.
We
do
don't
not
have
need
to make
provide.
arrangements.
Right.
for-
That also presupposes that our guests will be in person too.
Do PCAC members need to be in person, or can they video conference in? And if so say, Lisa, you video conference in, then do we need to open it up to the public? Because the way it's written is for LIRRCC members.
Well, I would expect that wherever you go, I go.
No, I guess what Brian is saying is there a differentiation between staff and, council members.
Right, so if all the council members are in person in Mineola, but Kara can't come and you can't come, but you Zoom in. The way I read it is, we don't need to then provide the Zoom to non-members, because the LIRRCC members are all in person. And that's in the area that you were reading before.
Right, I think that's the case. I will ask that question. I will clarify.
Are any of the other PCAC councils, they're all required to make their draft and approval as well? Are they doing anything different than us?
You're first. This is our first, you're first and foremost.
Okay.
Lucky us.
Yeah.
So we're the guinea pig.
MNRCC and Transit Riders Council are both next week. But it will be good to have these questions answered. I'll tell you that there's a lot of misinformation just in general in the world out here. My husband belongs to a public body, and they were basically told Zoom is no longer legal. And I said, oh, that's not true. So, I've shared this, but there's, I think that that's one person who wanted that to, really wanted that to be the case. Because they also don't want the public to participate or attend any meetings.
Well, they work for Microsoft and they're promoting Microsoft Teams and wants to zoom off the, don't laugh.
No, I
You're-
don't.
They're an
doubt
Elon
things like
Musk
that happen.
burger, right? Whatever the other new platform is, but these are good questions, and so basically the question that I'm asking clarification on about is, under what circumstances do we not need to provide video?
In a sense, yeah, but I would reference that line item or that section where it said about us being present.
Right.
And then, so, 2 up from where you're on screen now, where it says be it resolved, it says, yep, that one.
Yes,
When a member attends by video conference, it must be recorded and posted. If no one attends by video conference, and again, we're all in person in Mineola, does that mean we don't need to post it?
no, we always do. We've been recording and posting the meetings for,
Yeah, I thought that was
Years now.
in our bylaws.
Yeah.
So that's what, so does this, our bylaws will supersede that statement? Because that statement basically says it's required when a meeting, when a member attends via video conference, then it needs to be recorded and posted. So it doesn't say when they meet in person without video conference.
so that is there. Is that all meetings essentially? All meetings.
I mean, this, our bylaws say we do.
Yep. But
post-
there actually, that's part of the open meetings law, that this is an extenuation, an extension of the revision of the open meetings law, but the continuation of the existing one still means that you
Got
have
it.
to do
Okay.
that, right?
All right. So so it already said in the initial.
Right, so that
right.
was, so, right,
Initial
so I don't want
open
to, I
meeting
don't want
laws
to mess
that-
with that, right?
Right, okay.
In addition, so I'll finesse that language to add.
Well, this statement is not going to replace the existing statement in the meeting laws that say when we meet in person that they need to be posted. So this is just adding and clarifying that even if you're not in person and you're in video conference, it must also be recorded and posted. So I don't think anything needs to be clarified. This just is an amendment to the statement that's in the original open meetings law.
Okay.
Okay, so if you could just find out if we are all in person, do we need to provide a video conference option?
Okay.
All right, so we can still go ahead with this.
Yeah, I'm fine with the way it's written. We just
Yeah,
want clarification on one of the points in there and how we would need to
meet the
follow.
requirements, yeah.
Yes.
All right, would someone like to make a motion to accept?
Well, do we need to accept it with changes or to accept or wait for the changes? What are we accepting?
Well, the changes are just clarifications of our thing versus the open meetings law.
Yeah,
So
we're
do
not-
we- don't
We're
we have
not
to wait-
asking for changes, we're just asking for clarity. This way we know how to operate, go forward. So
Yeah.
I'm not asking for us to change any of the wording in here.
All right, well, then I'll make a motion to accept that, I guess.
Okay. Brian, you want to second it?
I second that.
All righty. Lisa, you good with it? I'm good with it.
Christie, Any
Christie, I'm sorry,
questions?
Christie.
No, I'm okay with it.
All righty then.
all right, now
Motion
I can
carried,
figure
so
out
we
how
got
to
that out of the way.
stop sharing this. I will be happy to do that.
All righty. And before we lose Brian, I know we're kind of jumping all over the place. The e-bike scooter update, like I mentioned earlier, we did have a Lisa, myself, Andrew Albert from Transit Riders, Randy Glucksman from Metro North Commuter Council. We had a informal conversation with Pat Warren regarding our concerns about scooters and whatever. They appear to be of a very similar mind as us. And it's just the lawyers get involved. So the legal department has to look at what they're doing and what's suggesting. And hopefully, I don't know if we'll be ready to go by the November board meeting, but I think definitely by the end of the year, we'll have something in place that's official. Does that sound about right to you, Lisa?
Yeah, they were going to speak with the conductors in labor. They really want to make sure that it's something that can work. And I think they were going to speak with the with the PD. They were working with the PD also, but the charging and riding are really the big issues.
And
And taking the space for accessibility.
yeah.
I think
And-
it was mentioned in the email thread that you guys saw a draft. Can that draft be shared with the rest of the members? Do we have it?
They don't want us to release it, that warrant, because it was just basically just getting some input from us. So I don't want to overstep my bounds with the MTA security. And once it's available to release, you'll be the first to have it. But, as soon as they say it's okay to go.
All right. I do appreciate you guys doing the portions of the agenda in the
Yeah,
first.
no, and one of the reasons, just so you know, one of the reasons is because this is an open meeting law. If we were sitting in a coffee shop, I might be able to tell you a little bit more about what's going on. But it is an open meetings and, we could have a newspaper reporter listening to all this.
So can we have an executive session, being that we're reviewing something that's safety and policy?
I would say we were also asked to not really discuss it.
Yeah.
Okay.
We just wanted to let you know that it
Being
is
worked
being
on.
addressed. I know MTA seems to drag things out for whatever reason, legal reasons, whatever. We just wanted to let you in particular know, and the whole council, that it is being taken very seriously. It is being worked on, and we hope to have something official very shortly. But details we can't give you, unfortunately.
I mean, I would say it's nothing secret. I mean, and not that I'm saying that after I said that they'd asked us not to say anything, right? But I mean, it's all
Well, if they
everything.
want
that
input,
comments-
we got to see what their draft is.
Yeah,
So
everything
might-
that there's everything common sense. We did provide them with some thoughts about from I think a different perspective, in particular, making sure that there's enough space for people to sit. The real concerns, making sure it's enforceable. Stuart, we did hear what the issues that you raised last month about, well, how do people get where they're supposed to go? And we know that there's a first mile, last mile, the pilot programs that are happening, but that looking in the totality of it, it's really about safety.
Yeah, and it's not just us too, like Lisa mentioned, they have to talk to labor. Some informal conversations that I've had with Vinny Testori, I believe he's of pretty much the same mind we are. He wants his membership to be safe, just like we want our riders to be safe. But again, they had a conversation with us. I'm sure they had a conversation with Vinny and maybe a few other people that they felt was important to buy into this. So, and again, they might tweak it depending on what Vinny said or what we said. So it's out there. All righty. Brian, anything else before you have to take off?
That's it. Thanks again for adjusting the order of the agenda.
Oh, not at all. No problem at all.
Sorry, I was late today.
That's all right. But at least now you're in. So when Brian goes out, we still have our quorum. So
My train was late.
Well, at least you're not driving on Zoom.
Well, I actually drove to Secaucus Junction in New Jersey, and my partner let me off there, and I took New Jersey Transit into Penn and then Penn home. I got to tell you, what an easy trip from Secaucus Junction. My God.
yeah, it's a quickie.
And soon you'll be able to have a slice of pizza.
Yep,
That's right. You signed, they said the agreement with Rosa and Company.
yep, there we go. All right, so let's get back on track. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Lisa, I think we're down to Hector.
I
Hector, you
believe
good to
so.
go?
Yes. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Evening. Wait, can we see Hector?
Yep. I
There
can
you
see
go. Okay. Sorry.
So what's new and exciting?
Well, I guess you guys mentioned it earlier, this Sunday, you guys are gonna participate on the exercise this Sunday?
Well, we have a number of members that are gonna participate, not
Okay.
everybody, but yeah, we
Okay.
do have a few people that signed up for it. In fact, I think we maxed out our, we maxed it out, right, Lisa? The number of
It's
people,
everybody, it's 200 people or more.
wow. I thought I heard 165, but maybe that's 165 volunteers, maybe it's the
No, maybe 250.
250, all right, thanks, Chris.
And they were able to put, get Squeeze Peter in.
Oh, that's great.
Okay, that's good. So for ridership, it's been interesting, like we've been finding that like Mondays and Fridays, the ridership is, at least on the peak times, is lower. Tuesdays and Thursdays seems to be higher ridership, and then Wednesday, there's a little bit of a dip on Wednesday, so it's kind of strange how that's evolving, but that's what it has been. So we're going between 60% and 70% of pre-COVID levels. It just fluctuates depending on the day. Penn Station continues. They keep opening up parts of the ceiling as parts of it are being completed. It's opening up gradually, so it's still on track to be completed early next year. And just continuing full steam ahead with the pre-opening activities for Grand Central Madison. And also third track, work is we're trying to get the Mineola station and Westbury stations done by the end of the year. So we're feverishly working on that.
Well, that's great, because I don't know if it was you I spoke to or maybe somebody from MTA Construction. They kind of was saying like first quarter of next year, it's kind of left it open for like March 31st. But if we could finish those two stations by the end of this year, that'd be phenomenal.
I mean, it's a lot of work still left at those stations, but I mean, so through the contract is still going to be working through the spring. There's still punch list items and closing out stuff, but we're trying to get the majority of the major work done by the end of the year.
Okay, that's all we can ask.
Hector, one
Yes.
of the questions that Kara saw come up was about event service to UBS Arena and some glitches perhaps with Islanders games. Is that
So
something you've heard about?
so I'll start backwards. So when Grand Central opens, Elmont is going to be a full-time station on the Hempstead branch. So every Hempstead branch train is going to stop at Elmont 24/7. That'll be a regular stop. And then we're going to supplement that with mainline trains for events. Before and after events, we'll add stops to all the trains within the time period of events. We had some work the previous weekend with the Queens interlocking. There's still some work that has to be finished in there to make that fully operational. So some of the glitches are due to our not having the full flexibility. So there's like, I know opening day, there was a little bit of we had a service gap. So the game started, they had some opening festivities, and then, the game started later than it was planned. So people got out there a little later than what our schedule was planned. So there was a gap in service. Since then, we have made an adjustment. So in a way, what happened on opening day, that it was a little bit of a snafu. The reason for that is because of the limited flexibility we had. Like I think it was a Ronkonkoma train, we couldn't stop because it would have affected other trains. But then after that happened, we realized, what, we have no choice. So now we're actually adding the stop, but it is causing other trains to be delayed in that time period. So as things are popping up like that, we're just adjusting on the fly. Once everything is complete, then we won't have that issue. But there have been a few little incidents. like, for example, this weekend, there's gonna be no service to Elmont because of track work we're having in, on the Hempstead branch. So there is a game this weekend, so we're only gonna be able to provide Belmont station service, for the event, for the game.
And bus.
Well, if you use Belmont, they can go right in there. Belmont, you can walk.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alrighty, so East Side Access at Grand Central, it's still on schedule for the end of the year, or?
That's what we're still pushing for.
Okay, don't make me look bad, because everybody on social media say, it's gonna be in May. I says, no, it's the end of the year. It might be December 31st, but we're gonna make it the end of this year. So,
It's not just you, a lot of high-level MTA people, including the chairman, have committed to that, so we're still committed to it.
Hector, can you shed any light on the the piece that was in Gothamist on the positive train control waiver being sought from the FRA?
Yes, what's a simple way to explain it? Yeah, we needed a waiver because there's something with the software is not going to be ready yet. But there's a lot of other systems in place that we don't feel is fully needed, so we think it's still safe to operate. So we submitted for the waiver. They have to have a public hearing, and we're waiting to hear back from them. They have the final say since we're federally regulated.
right.
If there is a public hearing, will you let us know so we can
Oh, it happened already.
Oh, it did.
It was on Monday. I heard it happened on Monday. It was I think it was a virtual hearing. It was an FRA hearing. It wasn't our hearing. They did a hearing. And I think I heard the reporter was on the hearing, and that's where he got his information. So he wrote the story.
Yeah, I heard it was rather sparsely attended from what I understand, so. But I'm sure they didn't advertise it that much either.
Can we ask, please, who the two call-in users are? We have a 917-544.
Yeah, the 544-4071. My name is Michael Gilbert. I'm just an interested citizen. I'm not a reporter, and
Okay,
thanks for letting me listen in.
sure. Thanks, Michael.
Now, we just need it for the meeting minutes, so you'll be listed as a concerned citizen.
And then we have a call-in
you.
user 1. Okay, all right.
And then Lisa and Jerry, I'm going to be reaching out early next week. So related to PTC, there's some new requirement that we have related to PTC. It's hard to explain, but I'm going to send you an email. And we're looking for letters of support because we want to get, instead of us having to divert funds that we can use on capital projects, we want to be able to get a grant from the Fed. So we're looking for a letter of support if you guys would support us on that.
Sure, just send along what you need, and we'll, me and Lisa will look at it.
All right.
Alrighty, anybody else have anything for Hector?
Yeah, may I be recognized? I don't have a hand raise button on my screen, so I can only speak. This is
All right.
Stu.
All right, we'll go with Ron, and then I see Christopher has his hand raised too, so we'll go with Ron and then Christopher. All right, Ron.
It's
I think it's Stu.
So
Stu?
Stu, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have just a few issues. The last meeting, you raised the concern about cloudy windows. And I mentioned that acrylic plastic will often cloud if the wrong cleaner is used. I did a little research, and the same is true on polycarbonate windows. So it seems like this is a question that the council might want to put to the railroad as to whether the cleaning operation uses only cleaners on the train exterior that are approved by the window makers. Considering the condition of some of these windows, it seems probable that the wrong cleaning chemical is used or an abrasive is used. Obviously, when you've got a railroad that's got a cash issue, you really don't want to be replacing those windows. So I would propose that's a question you might want to put to the people who do the cleaning. Also, on the question of electric mobility, I don't think you raised it just now. Last time you raised the safety issue about the batteries. Is that still an issue for you?
Yes,
Just so you know, the New York City Council this coming Monday at 10 a.m. Will hold hearings. I believe there's five intros or bills pertaining to those batteries on bikes and scooters. And it should just be noted that that it is a concern. The emphasis, I believe, is on those batteries that have been refurbished or are not UL or otherwise approved. So the consensus seems to be that the batteries are generally safe if they're not, refurbished or modified by the wrong person, or if they're not UL approved. So that might be something for your consideration. Two more things, I believe. Last month I sent Hector a couple of questions about the scheduling. If the railroad is unnecessarily buffering, at least the trains I'm familiar with on the Montauk branch, and if it also could reschedule some trains in a way that would avoid conflict. Do you have any answers on that, Hector, or?
No, it's being reviewed, so I don't have an answer yet.
I'm sorry?
It's being reviewed.
Okay, thank you. And one other question for Hector. When a train is substantially delayed, is a record made that can be that was essentially a public record of why that train was delayed, or does it just is it just delayed and there's no information other than it came in late? In other words, is there a record that explains why it was delayed? And if you don't have an answer now, we can take that next month too.
No, we do have records of, on a weekly basis, every Thursday morning, we go over with the different operating departments, all the major delays for the past week. And people have to report on what happened and why, and then, get to the bottom of it. So we do keep track of when there's any delays and why.
So if I, as a member of the public, want to know why a particular train was delayed, is that information available to me? Do I have to FOIL for it, or how would I find out?
Actually, I'm not sure about what we do publish, but I have to find that out.
Okay, that's my question. And then just lastly, one of you had suggested that you should have somebody on the council or advising the council who's familiar with bicyclists. I just want to endorse that point of view. I think you do need somebody with a perspective of a bicyclist to understand fully, the what it means to take a bike on the train. And that's just a comment, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
So that's legislated. The legislation, however, for our Long Island Railroad Commuter Council and Metro North Railroad Commuter Council, when it was passed last year, doesn't provide a mechanism for how the member for each of those councils will be appointed, who the recommending elected official will be. So we are stymied until we find a way to have that amended.
And I'm sorry, I'm aware of that. I'm only suggesting that you recruit somebody, or in some manner have somebody who can give you the advice from that perspective. It doesn't necessarily have to be a voting member. It's just it's my suggestion.
Thank you.
all right, let's take it under advisement.
Thank you.
Chris, you got your hand up there, sorry.
It's okay. I'm waiting patiently. First of all, hey everyone, and forgive me, my camera's not going to be on. There is some questions also for Hector, if you can follow up, because the first one is I'm getting reports from other people that there's been Wi-Fi outages on the trains between Spionk going all the way down to Pashaw, and I'm going to even say maybe further down to Babylon.
Chris,
It's
we don't have
There's
Wi-Fi.
no
on our
Wi-Fi.
train.
It's the
No,
cell
we don't.
phone. Let me finish what I'm saying. It's
All
the
right.
cell phone one. When you're trying to get when you have your app for the train ticket and you're trying to put it on, there are times there are some outages area. And I did get a response on the email, but I think this should be alert on this is going on right now on that line, because it is, some people are having problems, and I've seen it on the train the other day on that one.
It probably
And-
depends who your provider is, so.
It depends of, it's some people, I admit, somebody, the conductor did mention that, but it's not just that provider phone. It's been all different phones having that issue.
But Chris,
So-
also, that's why they're having you mandated that you activate your ticket at the station. There are dead spots between stations, but I can pretty much tell you that almost every station on the Long Island Railroad, I can't guarantee this, but I can pretty much say this for certainty, that at every station, you are able to get some kind of cell phone. Now, between stations out east, that's a different story.
Agree,
Yeah, I can
agree.
tell you between Babylon and Patchogue, there's a dead spot right around Great River. As you approach the Great River Station, you got a dead spot and you won't get service again till you hit Oakdale Station.
I
That's
agree
the
with
way
you
it is.
saying that, Jerry, because that was one of the other issues I mentioned, but going further down the line.
I've got a
But-
booster and I can't get it.
Yeah. And I can't, and some people I know have T-Mobile or other companies and they still get that outage problem around there, but I'm just saying to be alert on. The other one for Hector, because I'm getting from the Long Island DDRO asking me this question. Do you have any new updates regarding the Mineola, what's going on with the Oyster Bay switching thing? Because they're trying to ask their individuals. They're not complaining. They just want to know any new updates because they've been trying to ask that construction division and have not got back to them.
Blah, 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 blah. I have to find out. I thought they finished that switch, but I'll confirm.
Yeah, because we still have to be on the other side track if, say, we want to go back to Brooklyn or Manhattan, and if we need Oyster Bay is on the same track still.
So that's not gonna, the public is not gonna see any change until we implement the new service for Grand Central. That's when things will change. In the meantime, trains are gonna run like they're normally running for now.
Okay, thank you.
All right, does anyone else have their hand up? I
See,
don't.
Ron is
Ron.
weaving.
Ron
Oh,
Troy.
Ron is, okay. All right, Ron, I guess you're up.
Hi, just a couple of quick questions for Hector. I had hoped that when the new schedules were done, that there would be some actual improvement in reverse commute for the Port Jeff branch. As far as I could tell, there wasn't. Second question, I don't know that we ever got a real explanation of what happens if there is a full-blown blackout in the area affecting Grand Central and the railroad, and there are people down below, and is there going to be, will it be generators, emergency power sources for Grand Central Long Island Railroad, or are they just hoping for the best?
So on the Port Jefferson branch, we really can improve reverse peak service on, east of Huntington, because it's single track, so.
Yeah, but 3-4 hours at a time between trains going in the opposite direction of whatever the peak is? That makes no sense. There's got to be some improvement. I'm not saying 20-minute intervals between trains, but no multi-hour waits either. The classic example besides, say, kids at Stony Brook is if you accidentally, let's say you're going home and you accidentally miss your stop, which can happen and has happened probably to a lot of us, you may have to wait hours for a train going the opposite direction so you can get back to your own station. So something. I'm not talking about, like I said, 20-minute intervals. I'm just talking something reasonable.
So the second part of that, the second part of the answer to that is, we also have we don't have extra diesel equipment sitting around. So, the diesel service overall hasn't changed because of those both limitations. We need more fleet, and we need, double tracking. So throughout diesel territory, that it hasn't, there's not a difference from, you know, with the new schedules.
So my point to the council is that something out here has to change. The railroad, I think, has got its head buried in the sand on this, railroad / MTA. And we've got to have at least some double tracking, perhaps electrification. We have to have a right for riders out here to actually not have to hope they can find a train to switch to go to Grand Central, or worse, if they're in the evening, say past 6, have almost no service, you know, coming out here, because what little there is now split between the two terminals. So we need some changes.
So Ron, we did complete a study that I shared it with Lisa and Jerry. I can give it next month if you like. We did a study about the whole Port Jeff branch. It's called the Port Jefferson Branch Modernization Study. And we identified what it would take to improve service on the branch. It's double tracking. You know, we looked at electrification, we looked at double tracking, and also all the other infrastructure improvements that would be needed. The bridges, the grade crossings, the platforms have to be lengthened. You're talking about $3 billion, $2 to $3 billion is the full cost. But as part of the capital planning process for the next capital program, we're looking at, you know, what can be done incrementally. So we are looking at it. We're not our heads aren't buried in the sand. We understand the issue. And this past Friday, we just had a virtual meeting with the town of Brookhaven supervisor, the senator from the area, for the branch, the assemblyman for the branch, the legislator, 2 legislators, I mean, and yeah, so we just had a virtual call with them to discuss this very topic about the future of the branch.
And also, of course, replacement of what's left of the late 90s diesel fleet and adding additional equipment. Of course, electrification would completely change how that was done.
No, I think that for PCA, for the PCAC meeting, we talked about having the a presentation on the capital planning process that would look at it for all of the 3 councils and take into consideration some of these projects. So Hector, maybe we can include some talking points about this project in there.
That would be helpful. And Hector, my other question, the one about what happens if there's a blackout and there's no power coming into the lower levels of Grand Central, LIRR. What does LIRR plan to do for that?
I know there is a plan. I just don't know it, so I have to get back to you with the plan.
Hector, I can kind of rescue you on this one because I've had the honor of having the tours of some of this stuff. There are some massive automatic changeover diesel generators that are supposed to kick in at the moment of a power failure. So as I was told and as I was shown, obviously I didn't see it actually happen, but if everything works as told, and I'm sure they'll be doing some kind of testing at some point, they should automatically kick in and there should be an abundance of lighting to get out. However, it will be stairs. It will not be elevators or escalators.
Which means that anybody who can't climb a huge number of stairs is in deep something.
Well, at the moment, that's what I was told, that the escalators, because the thought is because people are going to panic, and if there are escalators there, it's more of a panic and more of a problem, or packing for people that are crazy want to get out. So
Well,
that's what was explained to me.
I am guessing that Chris and I would both agree that something needs to be done for people who cannot get up the stairs.
I'm sure that if God forbid it ever happens, there would be Long Island Railroad personnel there to aid people that need that kind of assistance.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for Chris, but I think he's all over this already. So in fact, we'll let Chris
You're
speak for
actually
himself.
correct, Jerry, because there's one thing that Carmel Q and I are working on in an emergency is also, first of all, I want to back Larry up on one question. He is correct because the backup generators are also supposed to be powering up the elevator. That will give them upstairs, but remind you that we're also working on new procedures for walkers, wheelchairs, baby strollers, seniors, and any type of disability. So there is a new law that's supposed to go in for not just the railroad, not just Metro North, but subways and buses in attempt of an emergency on that. And I remember, Lisa, you were with us when we saw the generators at the tour, and it does show how the backup power will kick in. So I do remember definitely that, as well as actually it's in my notes. So Ron, that's one thing that's why we have to do testing first before we open any stations, including any elevators on that. That's why we have to be testing everything. And we still do that even today. Thank you, guys.
All right, now,
I
thank-
would say also thank you.
Ron, I would say that, one of the questions we asked is, so this is really deep and there's not a lot of elevators and, because one of the responses was, this was designed a long time ago. And perhaps, and technology has changed, and perhaps if it was designed now, it might have been designed a little bit differently.
Look, as long as, I mean, the point that, yeah, everybody would rush the escalators and elevators, and that could be dangerous. As long as they get personnel in place, let's say it's one elevator from the mezzanine or whatever it's called, lobby area, up, and there are personnel there to keep things under control, and that elevator works and is reliable, that would probably meet most requirements.
Yeah, well, Ron, you got to remember, people are people. If God forbid something like that happens, everybody is it's going to be utter panic and chaos.
Oh,
No matter what you do. It could be Penn Station, it could be Grand Central, it could be anywhere. It's just people are people. And because of the world that we live in right now, that's what's just going to happen.
Yeah, but the safety precautions are taken very, very seriously.
Yes.
As we mentioned earlier, that's why this coming weekend, there's a major operation going on, which is just basically, it's an emergency preparedness operation. And we were fortunate that we were invited to send a couple of people to go along with this. So, I mean, trust me, they're not going to leave people stranded in the dark, in the catacombs of hell. It's not going to happen.
Well, I appreciate your attention to it, and just, it's a major concern for me, and I'm sure a lot of other people. I would suggest that MTA, LIRR, and the council just get a lot more publicity out, including videos from this test, to let people know exactly what is going on, what's being planned. I think that would improve confidence considerably.
I would imagine that will be all part of it, that this is the testing portion, not the opening portion.
Thank you very much.
All righty. Do we have anybody else before we?
When I talked about designing it differently, I meant for like the regular daily use, not the emergency evacuation, because I think that that's never going to get short shrift.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
Oh, one point I wanted to mention about Elmont Station. So when we do start full-time service, as part of the UBS arena being built, ESD and the developer, they committed to dedicating some spots for commuters, parking spots. I believe it's going to be 150 spots to start off. So currently the UBS folks are negotiating with the town of Hempstead, because it's going to be like a permit. I think they're going to do like a permit for town of Hempstead residents to be able to park there as commuters. It's not our it's not our property. It's so we're not directly involved in it.
So I have a question. The not Metzfeld's Point, but the Willets Point development. That was just announced, and that or that's being announced, and that they're going to break ground on relatively soon. Do you know if that includes any transit improvements, including to the Long Island Railroad?
I think this is. I don't think there's been any real deep discussions yet. I think it is very preliminary. We've known this was coming for a while, so now that it's going to be moving, but the meetings are just beginning, so I don't think we know that yet.
Okay. Well, we're here. We're ready. We just have to find Donovan Richards. I think he might be in at Somos.
And when you find them, tell them we need a member from Queens.
Oh yeah, that's definitely on the list.
Unfortunately, I don't think it's too high on his list, but at least it's on there.
Yeah.
Okay, last call for Hector. Anybody got any questions for Hector, or? Okay, seeing none, Hector, as always, we greatly appreciate having you here and, answering our questions and clarifying things.
No problem.
Alrighty, I think the last thing that we had on our, on our business is we do want to, we want the members to start thinking about, we don't have to discuss it right this minute, but, shoot some emails around and we want to get an idea of what our membership wants for goals, potential projects for 2023. In the potential projects division, Lisa's just now getting her associate director on board, so that's still probably a month away realistically. And then we gotta backfill another position, so I don't know how much we'll be able to do with projects unless she's got some really crackerjack interns going on, but the goals, things that we want to see, that we want to push for. Just want to get that discussion again. I don't want to put anybody on the spot now. Take some time, think about it. Even if it's if it's a short range goal, if it's a long range goal. I mean, obviously, right now, one of our big concerns are the the electric bikes and stuff that are coming on the trains, and that's being addressed. That was a concern of ours, and we're working on that. Also, the dust has to settle on East Side access, on third track, once things settle down a little bit, we'll be able to redirect and see what our priorities are going forward. So give it some time, give it some thought, shoot some emails into me and Lisa, let us know definitely something we want a discussion and try and nail down. In fact, we get the emails from our members, over the month of December. By the time we have our January meeting, we can have a list drafted, and then we can discuss it and finalize at that point. Alrighty, does anybody have anything else before we call it a meeting?
We should all be glad that Kathy Hochul won.
Well, she's a friend of the MTA. I mean, that's, we try
Lee
not to be
Zeldin would not
political
have
here.
been. Lee Zeldin would not have been.
You would have
Well-
needed new tires, Larry.
Well,
Hey, look, for me, it was a quiet election down there. So for those that I just came back from Washington, D.C., I was down there for the election. I was at the Capitol and at the White House, and it was quiet because there was nobody there. They were all in their respective states, but everybody was keeping very close tabs on their individual interests and
oh,
states.
of course, that's human nature. So we'll see how everything falls out when everything's finalized. I know they're still trying to get some seats, confirmed or whatever. And we'll see what happens.
For us,
It'll be interesting.
it means that this is now the time to push for operating funding, for how to ensure that there is sufficient funding so that the triple threat of raising fares, reducing service, and layoffs doesn't happen. But that
Agreed.
there's a dedicated operating revenue stream that is sustainable.
And I'm actually curious now if the Nassau County executive will come out and actually talk with the governor of the state, or if he's going to continue his no talk, no touch, no see approach. I don't know
Well,
what
we'll
else to
see.
call it.
It's a possibility he could have been hanging back in hopes that his guy would have, become governor. You don't know. You don't know how people.
No,
but
we don't.
Now it's another 4 years, so he might be reconsidering his position. We don't know. We don't know what they're discussing behind closed doors and whatever, but
Agreed.
we can only speculate. Lisa makes a very good point. We do need to push for federal operating funds if we can for MTA. But just taking Long Island, and that disregarding Metro North or what's going on in the city, where Lisa probably has a little more.
Yeah, Jerry, I got a question. Didn't we one time we were looking at talking with Amtrak about getting representation on the Amtrak board? Whatever happened to that? Do you remember that?
That's not Amtrak's position. That's that would have to be, it's a federal appointment. So it would have to like come from Schumer's office or somewhere like that. And I don't know, that they never gave us any thought. We asked about it, we inquired about it, and it was just like, they never pushed it, where they even told,
We can ask about it again.
that can't hurt.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think it can hurt. It can only help out if we, somehow get some representation.
Especially since Amtrak is gonna be a thorn on our side. We have a lot of work that's to be done on those tunnels going forward, and they're dragging on it.
Honestly, I think it's also a priority to get, it's one of certainly my priorities to get voting membership on the MTA board too.
Yeah. Well, again, that's a very definite, I think that should be one of our goals.
Yeah.
For next year.
Yeah.
Again, right now, now's the time to formulate what our goals are. Because you really can't do much till January. Because that's when they go back into session. That's when they will be, drafting resolutions and crafting new laws. Right now, everybody's just, trying to get themselves reorganized. The point I was trying to make earlier, though, when we're talking about the federal issue. On Long Island alone, we have 4 congressional members, 3 of them are new. Zeldin's gone, Swazi's gone, Rice is gone. And they all went on their own terms. They didn't get voted out. They just decided it was time to leave. But again, that's 3 new congressional members starting from scratch. And Garbarino's only been there 2 years. He's still relative. Technically, he's not a rookie anymore, but pretty close. So we got a lot of work to do. We have to, again, there's another goal for next year, is to establish relationships with all these congressional members. We've already started, at least they've already started working on a relationship with Garbarino's office, with the elusive Lindsay.
I just have to laugh because I look back on the email chains and where I think we're at 10 months.
Yeah.
You started that ball rolling about 10 months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So but it is something we are working on. And then obviously as the transition goes over, we'll see what happens.
And on the state level, we the federal level, I think we some unique challenges depending on what happens at the House and the Senate. But on the state budget, that's Larry, we need you to be the governor whisperer and just say MTA money, put in your budget, see if she leaves any drafts of her speech around and just write it in.
You really want to get me in trouble, don't you?
God, practice her handwriting, just write it in.
But just so you know, it's very competitive. Everybody's got it, trying to get a rear. Everybody's, as some of you know, I'm very involved in the PTA with the schools. And they're talking the same thing. They want to get her ear and, more money for education, more state aid for our schools, yada, yada. We need this, we need that. So everybody has their needs. Everybody's trying to get her attention. And we're going to have to fight hard because there's a lot of people out there competing against us.
I'm very pleased that the person who we hope to bring in, that we plan to bring in, but
Yeah.
Has a good deal of experience in making things like that happen, and is known in Albany and has a track record of legislative success.
Yeah, well, probably the single most important thing is relationships. It's who you know and who you can have access to, and get past the gatekeepers.
It always is that.
Yep. Alrighty. Before we wrap up, anything they want? Christopher's got his hand up there. All right, Chris.
Yeah, there is one thing that, to think about, in the future for next year, there is one thing that we should be also checking out, like, some stations, may need a new paint jobs, updated their signs at stations because some of them are failing away, as well as the lightings need to be sometimes more refixed because there's some of the lights after the storms, after snowstorms, and yes, sometimes very severe thunderstorms, the lights don't work anymore. We need to, let them know that they need to work on proper lighting and the new accessibility button to let customers know right now, yes, they're in Nassau, but they're not in Suffolk County. The special accessibility button can press when the train crew, when they see that light, they'll say, you have an accessible customer, needs to get on the train. It's not that hard to put your arm out like a taxi saying, here, train, come and get my hand, which it's not smart, it's not safe, but something needs to be something to work on in the future.
Alrighty, well, that's, again, well, that's why I like threw it out there. To be perfectly honest with you, I wasn't really aware of that. All I was aware of is what they have in the subways, they call the help point. My understanding is that the Long Island Railroad is going to take that concept and have these, so I don't know if that's what you're talking about.
You're correct on that part, Jerry. It's just that it has the help point, but it also has the press the accessibility activated button that will flash when the train driver sees the light flashing at, let's say, at Belmont, the new station, or Mineola, it will let the train know that there's an accessible customer at this position, needs to get on that train.
Okay, I was not aware of that. That's
Well, I know Hector and Q and I have seen it. It's definitely at Nostrand. It's definitely on the other lines, but it's not in Suffolk County.
okay.
Well, maybe next time, I don't know, Hector, if you off the top of your head have an update for timing, but otherwise we can wait. We can take that up next time.
Actually, there's gonna be an update at the committee meeting, so stand
Oh, good.
by.
Okay,
Super.
perfect.
And that is on November 29th.
And of course, one thing that has been on our list, and I will be sure that it is on our list again for 2023, is accessibility at Willetts Point. And this coming from a diehard Yankees fan, but we got to get an elevator there. Not just for the Mets, we got the US Open. They're doing development now in the neighborhood. God knows what's going to be going on over there. So, I mean, it's long overdue. I mean, it's something I was bringing up during my first term as council chairman, and that was back in like 2006, 2010. So, it's 2022, soon to be 2023. So that's definitely going to be on our top 10 list.
Yeah. I did raise that in a Queens specific briefing or webinar I was on, but they moved on.
Yeah,
But
well,
that's why I will be tracking down the participants.
okay.
Hunting down, huh?
Huntington.
Ah,
Yeah.
I still like the both ways you say that, Lisa. It doesn't matter. I'll still
Yeah.
do it anyway.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so it is a little before 6 o'clock. Last call. Anything to bring up? Or
Motion
do we have a
to
motion to adjourn?
motion to adjourn.
First to adjourn.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy
second.
holidays, everybody.
I'll second
Our
that.
next PCAC meeting is PCAC on December 8th. And then Long Island Railroad Commuter Council is not scheduled to meet until the new year.
Well, we should get our schedule out for next year pretty soon.
Yeah. That's on my list.
Okay. Very good. Well then, everybody, have a great evening and see you at PCAC.
Take care,
Have-
everybody. Have a good night.
Bye,
Bye now.
everyone. Have
Happy
a great night.
holidays.
Bye-bye.
Happy holidays. Happy
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
Bye.